This is DW News Africa. Coming up on the program, what's next for Madagascar after the military takes over the country? Colonel Michael Randrianirina has promised an election within 2 years, but is his coup the will of the people? And are Christians in Nigeria facing genocide in their country? That's what some top US figures are saying.
They are systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria.
I'll be talking to a government minister about these allegations. And Kenya mourns Raila Odinga, the pivotal leader who helped usher in multi-party democracy in the country, has died at the age of 80. Hello, I'm Christine Mundra. It's good to have your company. Madagascar is facing a new era of military rule after weeks of youth protests engulfed the Indian Ocean nation. The African Union has suspended Madagascar and called for the restoration of a civilian-led government. Madagascar's new ruler is Colonel Michael Randrianirina, who led soldiers from his elite unit in a mutiny against former President Ange Rojewel, joining the demonstrations, calling for him to step down and urging soldiers not to fire on the protesters. That meant the end of the line for Rojewel, who fled Madagascar on board a French military plane, saying his life was at risk. Rojewel's ouster was a key demand of the Gen Z protesters. They've been demonstrating for more than 3 weeks over lack of basics such as water and power, which brought a crackdown from the previous administration. Madagascar's new military leaders have promised elections within the next 2 years.
We had to take responsibility yesterday because there's nothing left in the country. No president in the Senate, no government. Madagascar is a dying country. We must take responsibility as citizens and patriots. According to the ruling issued by the High Constitutional Court, I'm taking the position of president. These friends of mine are with me. There must be an oath-taking.
Now, thousands of young protesters fill the streets of Antananarivo. Some welcomed the military's takeover, but others had a warning.
First of all, I'm very happy. Really very happy as a young person here, living in Madagascar. We're free now. We've won. In fact, it's really a victory. I don't know what to say anymore, but I'm happy, that's it.
I'm glad he's no longer in power. But we also have a message for the deputies and all the other corrupt authorities who still remain. You have the same mindset. And next time, it will be your turn. We won't stop here. Madagascar needs to be purified. The whole system must change.
And to gain more insights into the developments in the context of what is taking place in Madagascar, we've invited Keta Kandriana Rafitoson onto the program. She's an anti-corruption and pro-democracy activist and the vice chair of Transparency International. From 2018 to 2024, she served as the executive director of Transparency International Madagascar. Welcome to DW News Africa, Keta Kandriana. Young people in Madagascar took to the streets to protest water and power shortages. Socio-economic challenges in the country are seen as emblematic of corruption and bad governance. This has now culminated in the military taking over the country. What does this mean now for Madagascar and its young people?
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. What's happening in Madagascar today, I would say, is both tragic and revealing. Young people initially took the streets not to topple the regime, but to demand dignity, access to water, electricity, and jobs. These are basic rights that decades of corruption, elite capture, and bad governance have denied them. So when soldiers eventually intervened, it was not to seize power at first, but to stop the bloodshed caused by weeks of repression. And that's why I think many people cheered, not out of support for a coup, but out of relief that the violence had stopped.
When the coup leader, Colonel Michael Randrianira, was addressing a crowd in the capital, he received cheers of approval when he asked the crowd if they were ready for a military takeover. What does that tell us about where public sentiment is in Madagascar? He had asked a direct question: are you ready for a military takeover?
Yeah. So once again, I do think that those cheers reflected at the time exhaustion and relief. So a mixture of those, and not a collective desire for military power. After 2 weeks of brutal repression since the beginning of the protests on September 25th, killings and fear were increasing in the capital city and other regions of Madagascar. So the people needed someone to stop the violence. And so when Colonel Ranjanirina asked the crowd if they wanted change, it was, I think, an emotional release, not a blank check for a junta.
If we can talk a moment about the President Ange Rajol. He first came to power in 2009 in a popular uprising similar to what has happened in Madagascar in the last few weeks. Is there something different about this particular moment?
Yes, there is a difference, and the difference is fundamental because Ange Rajol is a putschist. In 2009, the uprising that brought him to power was engineered by political elites, backed by opportunistic networks and potentially foreign interests. It was a classic power grab masked as a revolution. So the genuine intention then was really to seize power, not to bring people's grievances on the table. But today, what we're seeing is spontaneous and authentic. The movement began with young people from the Gen Z movement who had no political party, no hidden agenda, and they have repeated that multiple times. Only the will to reclaim their future. They are better informed, digitally connected, and socially conscious. What radicalized them was not ideology, but repression. Every tear gas canister, every beating from the gendarme, every lie from the presidency convinced more citizens to stand up. And this time, I think it's not about seizing power, but redefining it. Demanding more transparency, accountability, and participation, and also rebuilding a genuine social contract which has been broken by years of lies and corruption.
You're a pro-democracy activist. When one reads the statistics that show that 3/4 of Madagascar's population of 30 million people live in poverty, is it fair to say democracy isn't working for people? And I guess we can extend this beyond Madagascar and talk about other countries where we've seen similar popular uprisings led by young people, the most recent example perhaps being Morocco.
Yeah, so I'd say that it's not democracy that is failing here. It's those who have emptied democracy of meaning. When 3/4 of our population live in poverty, while a small elite thrives on state capture, people naturally lose faith, I would say. And in Madagascar, elections have become rituals without accountability. Institutions are weak, justice is politicized and captured, and corruption is systemic. But the young generation's uprising shows that citizens still believe in democracy when it delivers justice and not privilege. Of course. And their struggle echoes those in Morocco, those we had in Nepal or Peru, for instance. It's about youth reclaiming voice in systems that excluded them. So true democracy isn't just about ballots, I would say. It's about trust, fairness, and shared prosperity. For it to work, governments must fight corruption, invest in basic services, and protect freedoms. Otherwise, people will continue to seek justice in the streets. The challenge now is to channel that energy into rebuilding institutions that finally belong to the people. So What's happening in Madagascar is a warning and a promise, and same thing in other countries. A warning that neglect, corruption, and lies can ignite a nation. A promise that even after decades of disillusion, a generation can still rise for integrity, truth, and hope. And the world should listen to them not as a footnote to crisis, but at the start of a genuine renewal of democracy.
Keta Kandriana Rafitoson, thanks very much. We appreciate your insights on DW News Africa.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Are Nigerian Christians being subjected to genocide in their own country? Nigeria's government has rejected allegations by US Republican Senator Ted Cruz. Cruz posted on X, officials in Nigeria are ignoring and even facilitating the mass murder of Christians by Islamist jihadists. It's time to hold those responsible accountable. My Nigeria Religious Freedom Accountability Act would target these officials with powerful sanctions and other tools. Now, Mr. Cruz is seeking to have the US government designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern. That is a status given to countries engaging in severe violations of religious freedom. The accusations of Christian genocide in Nigeria have been amplified by, among others, the American comedian and talk show host Bill Maher, who said this on his show.
They are systematically killing the Christians in Nigeria. They've killed over 100,000 since 2009. They've burned 18,000 churches. This is so much more. These are their Islamists, Boko Haram. This is so much more of a genocide attempt than what is going on in Gaza. They are literally attempting to wipe out the Christian population of an entire country.
Stark claims, but are they true? Neither Cruz nor Maher have provided any evidence or credible sources. Maher says that 100,000 Christians were slaughtered by the Islamist Boko Haram since 2009. But Nigeria Watch, which is a database that monitors lethal violence, conflicts, and human security in Nigeria, says that since 2009, there were about 59,000 deaths due to, quote, religious issues. But only about half of Nigeria's citizens are Christians, and there is no indication how many of the religiously motivated deaths are Christians or Muslims. But it is clear that the figure is much lower than Bill Maher's claim. And I'm now joined by Nigeria's Minister of Information and National Orientation, Minister Mohammed Idris. Welcome to DW News Africa, Minister Idris. I would like to begin by asking you if the government in Nigeria is concerned about the attacks on the Christian community. Is this seen as a matter that needs the attention of the authorities?
Well, thank you for having me. Let me say that, yes, we do have attacks on some Christians. We also have attacks on some Muslims in Nigeria. I want to put on record that Nigeria is a multi-faith country, meaning that our constitution guarantees that Muslims and Christians and even those who don't practice any of this religion is able to do so in peace without any molestation by anybody. We have seen situations where extremists, violent extremists especially, go to kill Christians and go to kill Muslims in mosques and in churches. This is completely unacceptable. But to characterize this as an attempt by the Nigerian authorities or by anyone else to say that this is an attempt at genocide against Christians is completely false. The Nigerian government rejects that characterization.
Right.
But we also know that we have this challenge and we want the world to know that.
Minister, there are reports essentially saying that Nigeria is one of the most dangerous countries, if not the most dangerous countries for Christians. There are conflicting tallies of the number of Christians that have been killed in targeted attacks in Nigeria. Can you provide us the latest statistics according to government records then?
Well, let me say that Nigeria is certainly not the most dangerous place for Christians to live in. This is false. This is not what the reality is on ground. Of course, these statistics keep changing. We're careful to provide these numbers, but we know that they are largely being exaggerated by some people in some quarters to make Nigeria look bad. We don't believe that. Nigeria is, of course, we have issues of Christians being massacred by a few criminal elements. We also have Muslims also being targeted by
understood, Minister, but if you contest the
extremists. But yeah,
I understand, Minister, but as you are contesting the numbers that are being put out there, you say they're exaggerated. I'll ask you again, are you able to provide us government statistics, the most recent ones?
Well, you see, these figures keep changing, and we are tallying them day after day. But we know that they are largely been exaggerated. We are careful to tally this, to provide these numbers, but they are largely been exaggerated by those who are making these claims. Far away from the truth. Nigerian government is doing everything possible to ensure that Christians and Muslims live in accordance with what is enshrined in their constitution. Everyone, like I said earlier, this is a multi-faith, multi-religious country. No one has any right to,
but Minister Idris,
another person, to kill him and to.
Understood, Minister Idris, but you have allegations here, and these are one report coming from a local NGO in Nigeria, alleging that something to the tune of 7,000 Christians have been killed in the first 7 months of this year alone. I appreciate that you say these numbers are changing regularly, but if these numbers are true, that would be suggesting as much as 30 people being killed every single day. What are the figures that you are able to tell us, even if it's, for example, what were the numbers in the calendar year 2024?
2024, you mean, or 2025? We're in 2025 now.
And the year isn't over, and I appreciate that you're saying
this year.
Yeah, well, what were the numbers, for example, in 2024? Because 2025 hasn't ended, and you're saying you don't want to give numbers as this continues to change. So what are your latest statistics if we went back to 2024, for example?
Well, yes, we know that there are a few hundreds that have been killed, and but not anywhere near those numbers that these people are quoting. We don't have 7,000 people killed. We don't even have half of those numbers killed. I think that it's important for people to realize that yes, there are people killed, but it's also important to realize that banding these numbers in a way that will also promote people or anger people or provoke people into some kind of taking laws into their hands is not healthy for our country. We want people to come together. We want people to be encouraged, to tolerate each other. We don't want these numbers being banded anyway, so that people will just continue to get killed.
Right.
Less than a few hundred have been killed. We know that.
Forgive me for interrupting, but I think part of the challenge would be that in the absence of official statistics, it then becomes difficult for even us as journalists to be able to challenge some of the figures that are being put out there, because it doesn't appear that the government itself actually has a handle and is monitoring and surveying what is happening, giving it the current surveillance. Is that the plan? Well,
the government, the last figures that we have is about 200 people have been, confirmed to have been killed by these violent extremients. But when you
in which period, Minister? Sorry, if you could just clarify which period you're referring to.
Situation. In 2025, we're in the year 2025 now. And so what we are trying to say is that the numbers being banded by this, 7,000 people being killed, or any number in their thousands, is absolutely false.
The U.S. Republican Senator Ted Cruz is seeking to have the U.S. government designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern. This is a designation that is applied to countries deemed to be in violation of religious freedom. If he were to succeed in his campaign, what would that mean for Nigeria's relations with the United States?
Well, we don't even think that the Nigerian, up to this moment, we know that Senator Ted Cruz and others are trying to convince the American government, but we feel that they do not have the facts, they do not have the statistics. There is also not true a reflection of what is happening in Nigeria. We don't believe that they will succeed. We believe that the American government will understand the true nature of what is happening in this country and will not accept the kind of characterization that people like Senator Ted Cruz will have put out either in the Congress or in the American government or the world to know. We want the world to know that, characterizing Nigeria as a country of particular concern is not healthy. It is not helping us to fight these violent extremists. It is not also helping us to bring normalcy in our country. We are cooperating with all those who want to help us to ensure that we bring this to an end. And we don't believe this kind of characterization. The Nigerian government rejects it. We feel that the right figures and the right situation be put out there, and we don't believe that we should belong to that kind of classification that Ted Cruz and others like him are trying to put out there.
Right, Minister, and I guess that is your answer to this US Senator Ted Cruz, but I wondered what your answer is to Nigerians who are from the Christian community, particularly those who live in the northern part of the country, who say they feel vulnerable, who say that they experience targeted attacks, that their religious centers are attacked, their churches, and who feel that the government is not giving this the attention that it deserves?
Well, the same Christian community, the leadership of the Christian Association of Nigeria, especially in the north, only yesterday we have Reverend Hayab, who is the chair of the Christian Association in the northern part of the country, who has also characterized this as just an attack by violent extremists against some Christians and against also some Muslims in this country. We're engaging them. We're telling them that this is not a conflict that is designed to exterminate the Christian community in this country. I go back to what I said earlier. Nigeria is a multi-faith, multi-religious country. Our constitution enshrines that. This is enshrined in our constitution. Everyone believes that everyone can practice his or her religion. All the Christian communities in Nigeria are working together. We have isolated cases where these Christians are targeted, just like we have isolated cases where these Muslims are also targeted. So if you say, some say that Nigeria is a country where, especially in the northern part of the country, Christians cannot freely perform their own, go about their own religion. We have leadership of this Christian community saying, indeed, there are these, attacks on Christians as there are on Muslims alike. But Nigeria is generally not a country where one particular religion is absolutely targeted for extermination. It is not the case, and Nigeria certainly will not allow that to happen.
Minister Mohammed Idris, thank you for your time on DW News Africa.
Thank you for having me.
Kenya is mourning Raila Odinga. The country's towering opposition leader and former prime minister died aged 80. He reportedly suffered a heart attack during a morning walk while in India. The government has declared 7 days of national mourning. Thousands of Kenyans have been turning out to pay their respects to the man who was often described as Kenya's most influential opposition figure. Odinga spent more than 3 decades at the heart of the nation's political transitions. His defining political moment came in the disputed 2007 presidential election. Exit polls suggested Odinga had widespread support, but the Electoral Commission declared he'd lost, triggering some of the worst ethnic violence in Kenya's history. He became prime minister in a national unity government and helped steer Kenya from single-party rule to a vibrant multi-party democracy. DW's Felix Maringa has this from Raila Odinga's hometown of Bondo in western Kenya.
We are in Bondo, the hometown of Raila Odinga. This is where he had his rural home, and many people here have expressed sadness at the sudden demise of Raila Odinga. He will be remembered by many people, and this is what they had to tell us about his sudden death.
He has been a voice of the people. He has always championed for the people's rights. He has also championed for democracy, for equity.
Raila was brave enough, a man who can speak his mind without fear, and a man who was ready to fight whichever any evil deeds the government do to his people.
Raila Odinga will be remembered for his contributions to Kenya's multi-party democracy. In the 1980s and 90s, Raila Odinga was a key figure that pushed for Kenya's second liberation from a one-party state to a multi-party democracy. In the year 2010, Raila Odinga also pushed for the Kenya's 2010 constitution, and that led to the devolved governance system in Kenya. In the year 2007-2008, during the Kenya's post-election violence, Raila Odinga sat at the discussion table and helped bring stability at one of Kenya's most trying times. In 2018, he had a handshake with the then President Uhuru Kenyatta, and in 2024, he also sat with the current President William Ruto and led to the stability of governance in Kenya. Raila Odinga also formed one of Kenya's most populous political parties, the Orange Democratic Movement, that enjoys massive support in the country. Raila Odinga loved football, and he was commonly referred to as Baba for his fatherliness and mentorship role amongst many politicians in the country.
That was DW's Felix Moringa. That is all for the program. See you next time. Bye-bye.